do not actually specifically go after people about organisers, for example. It does talk about people in areas, but any breach of international human rights, it's very clear in international law, can only happen when a democratically elected body and a democratic system actually decides that there's a need, for some reason, for a limited period of time, and very specifically, to suspend some human rights. Now, they have to be very specific as to what rights are suspended, why they're suspending that right, how the evidence is for that. None of that has happened. And in fact, those regulations we're talking about there are actually signed by the health.
So is it Mr. Swan?
No, they're not. They're signed off by the Chief Medical Officer. He's not even an elected representative. Mr. Swan on his own wouldn't even have the party doing that. That would have to be passed in a legislative assembly.
Who made those laws there? Not even law.
Mr.
Right. He's not even an elected official.
Correct. That's what they've done.
Well,
That's not the law. Don't give the police excuses for resisting arrest, etc.
in simple layman terms, what is your advice to us gathered here today?
My advice is basically, I'm not going to be backing down. I won't be backing down. Because in the longer term, they're breaching international human rights. Those police officers are actually committing crimes against humanity. And I fully intend there'll be an investigation after all this is over, and those police officers will be facing trial. For those, yes, if you look at what happened at the end of World War II, if you look at all the stuff they're doing now, I could read you a thing now, and I will do it in the speech shortly, but people would think they're actually talking about the arguments today. Those are the exact arguments put forward in 1933, 1935, up to 1945 by the German doctors, psychologists, etc., trying to promote them. The first people who were suffered from that under Nazi Germany were not Jews. They were the precursor to the Jews. It was German disabled, German mentally ill, German alcoholics, German homosexuals, etc. And in fact, anyone who didn't agree with the government was designated as you, because you're disagreeing. Where have we heard this recently? You must be mentally ill if you're not prepared to wear a mask. You must be mentally ill if you're not going to take a vaccine. That's exactly what happened in Nazi Germany. After the war, of course, there was hundreds of major war criminals.
Attention, this is a police message. It's my duty to warn you that gatherings of groups of more than 15 people in offence under regulations of the Health Protection, Coronavirus Restrictions Regulations Northern Ireland 2020 do not disperse, you may be liable to prosecution.
So basically, what happened after that, there was major prosecutions. Some of the higher trials, which we know as the Nuremberg tribunals, ended up, I think, convicted of 161. 37 of them were actually sentenced to death, including doctors, for breaching exactly those rules. And many others got 15, 25, 35 years in prison. But in the lower courts, dealing with things like police officers and all, who just didn't do their duty. Some of them not actually actively did anything wrong, but failed to do their duty to protect the public's human rights. Failed to actually protect the public and human rights. They actually got substantial fines. Other countries followed suit. If you look at the Netherlands, for example, 30,000 convictions of officials in the Netherlands. Some of them sentenced to death, I think 52 sentenced to death. And many others got between over 3 years in prison in those tribunals, and almost 40,000 were convicted in the lower courts in the Netherlands after the war, and they got between 1 and 2 years in prison. So, sorry, 1 and 10 years. So, you know, this is coming down the road, these guys. Not every policeman's bad. Some of them are stuck in a hard position, but they need to be very careful what to do. If they're part of organising any of these breaches of human rights, or if they physically get involved and start giving tickets, no, that's fine, take a ticket, because I want to give a ticket. The policeman has to act under the police criminal evidence order. That requires him to give you his name, his station, and his number. Also the grounds under which they're actually prosecuting, etc. And when that information comes in, we can then collate that, because we will want that for criminal trials later on against these police officers. I fully intend they will lose their pensions, they will lose their houses, they will lose their cars, and they will sit in prison, possibly 20 years, as far as I'm concerned. This is not going to go away. organisations across the world, the exact same arguments used by Nazi Germany are being used today. It's not acceptable. It won't be accepted. My advice is if they're trying to prosecute you or give you a ticket, give me your name and address, they can give you a ticket, and then maybe challenge that. We'll take the names, and in future, those officers, I'll not be making no complaint against them now. I don't want them getting off of some technicality of an investigation and get their hands slapped. I don't want to confuse the not being able to get taken in front of the tribunals and they were already dealt with by an ombudsman or something. No. I want them to stand in the future in a tribunal, and that will only happen if we replace the scum and that up there.
Reese.
That will only happen when the people up there.
Reese, go over to them, film them close.